Hi everybody, welcome back. This is the fourth and final part of my series where I share my thoughts about Oprah's recent episode about adult children who have gone no contact with their parent. So with that, here's part 4. And then they have a mother who chose estrangement from her son speak. It sounds like her son has pretty severe mental illness. He's been violent to his family members. I mean, it sounds like this mom had to do this for safety reasons, and she expressed that she doesn't get support. And I really feel for her. I do think there's times when someone's child does have mental illness that is not their fault. It's just, there are disorders that people can just have, even if they're raised in a good home. So I don't really have an opinion here. It's just for the purposes of this channel. To me, it's a separate subject. I'm glad they gave her a voice. I think this is a subject worth talking about. It's just not really relevant here. But I do believe that if a parent has to do this for their safety, and it really is a situation where the adult child has severe mental illness that's putting the parent's safety at risk, of course the parent should receive support, because I'm sure that's just a horrible decision to make. Well, then they have a dad share about his experience with his daughter, who went no contact for 3 years, and his video is played. He has a platform, and he talked about how painful the silence is after a child goes no contact. And then he says on the show that he thought he was a great father. But then he says she told him that he's a helicopter parent, and I will admit, at the beginning, this guy just didn't really vibe with me, but then he kind of won me over later on. But because his take initially was, he says it was because he was always working so hard to fix everything for her. He was doing too much for her. And I was like, this is too much like when you're at a job interview and they ask you for your weakness and you say your greatest weaknesses are that you work too hard and you care too much, right? It just was kind of like, I don't think that's what she meant. But then she told him that he didn't listen to her, and he admitted that that was indeed the case, and he was completely open with that, and I really do respect overall what he said, if you could take everything as a whole. So he had an opportunity a few years later to ask his daughter, what can we do to work on our relationship? And the daughter said she wanted them all to go to therapy, and he went, and he learned through that he was controlling her. And that's where I think, like, maybe in his mind it was, quote, fixing things, but how this was playing out, by his own admission, was that he was controlling her and he needed to treat her like an adult. And so he made changes and became less controlling. And then it kind of turned again into this transition to, here's, the same rhetoric. There's these adult children going no contact because they just want to run and hide and they won't work through problems. And yet this girl told her dad he didn't listen, which says to me she did try, because when else did she say that except when she was trying? And he just wouldn't listen. And I just, again, I'm so tired of this rhetoric that we're just out here happily cutting off a parent without ever trying to communicate with the parent what the problems are. That is ridiculous. These parents that act surprised and they say they have no idea what they did wrong. Their child's never told them what the problems are. I guess I'm coming from my perspective. I told my mother hundreds of times, probably even 1,000 times. It was so many times through my adolescence, through my adulthood. I went no contact 2 other times with my mother before the 3rd time. And, the first 2 times I wasn't even intending to be permanent. I just couldn't cope. And I, just stopped contact till I figured out what to do. And during those times, I wrote her a letter explaining exactly what she was doing to me that was so hurtful. I've told her on the phone, I've told her to her face, I've written her letters, I've written her texts. All the conversations, I've tried every way imaginable. And yet if you asked my mother, she would tell you that I have never even tried to work with her on our relationship, and she has no idea what she did wrong because I will not tell her. And so it's like, again, if you're collecting data from these parents, and then you're drawing all your conclusions from that, there's no way you're going to be anywhere near accurate. And I appreciated here that Dr. Tawwab jumps in and she said, look, even if it's true that their child didn't come to them, did the parent create a space where the child felt safe even coming to them in the first place. And then Dr. Gibson jumps in, the one that wrote the book, Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents. And she just says, parents, you need to be willing to self-reflect. She said nothing can change until the parent can ask, did I do something to contribute to this problem? And that's what she means by emotional maturity. Then the narcissist mom, and that's what I'm calling her. No, I'm not diagnosing her at all. Sometimes you just have to do something for fun. I just see so much of that behavior. So that's what I'm calling her. So the narcissist mom jumped in and said, oh, but my sons communicate with me just fine. And Oprah jumped in and said, that each child has their own experience in a family. And the narcissist mom went on about how she'll own her mistakes when she already said her daughter got upset over something little that didn't matter and was just because she didn't get her way. That's not self-reflection. And again, it really is, I think the most telling red flag was her excitement and laughter and just elation that she showed when Dr. Coleman validated her and made her feel like she was right. She is not owning anything. And then a really interesting person came on. She was a hospice nurse, and they play a video. Actually, I've seen this video, I believe, in a Facebook reel. I came across it somewhere, and they play this video of her saying she's a hospice nurse, and she's telling people, if you get a call from her saying their parent is dying, that your parent is dying and wants to see you, and you don't want to, that's okay. She doesn't judge you. And she said in most of these cases, the child does decline. And I think this is important to talk about. And, if you're saying, what should I do when that day comes? Well, you need to do what you feel is right for you. What's right for me may not be what's right for you. But for me, if that day comes, I won't go. And I know that if to many people this would sound horrific. Really? She's going to be on her deathbed. You're that bitter. You won't go. It's got nothing to do with bitterness. I know my mother will not have a real conversation with me, no matter what is going on. I've shared before that my son was born 3 months early with a complex congenital heart defect. And my mom was just awful to me through that. And when it first started, when everything had happened and it was at its worst, I guess I know now from my reaction to all this, I had believed that if anything really catastrophic ever happened, that my mom would rise to the occasion and actually be a mom. It's again, like we're told our whole lives that mothers have this immense, intense, unconditional love for their children. And so I believed that for so long. And so even though she was so awful to me and so hurtful to me and so just completely oblivious and uncaring about my feelings, I still believed, because of that messaging, that if something really bad was happening, that love that she supposedly had inside would again make her rise to the occasion. And so, I'd given birth to a baby that was less than 2 pounds. I was in the hospital in critical condition myself. And my mom still did not care. She was smiling as she was walking around. She was loving all the attention of people coming in to see us. And then a couple weeks later, she came to the hospital. So basically, here's the evidence that I really thought my mother would rise to the occasion. I am a single mother. It was during flu season. And in the NICU, only the parents are allowed to visit the baby because they're trying to minimize germs getting into the NICU for obvious reasons. But since I was a single parent, I was allowed to pick one person who could be basically fill the role of the absent father, right? And my dad had passed away a year before. He wasn't alive any longer. So I could pick anyone. And whoever I picked, though, that's who it had to be throughout the entire time. I couldn't change it, this month it'll be this person or whatever. And I picked my mother. And now I just see how naive I was. I understand my position. I don't shame myself, but yes, I was very naive because I really believed my mother would come through for me if something this bad was happening. And my mother lived 2 hours away. She said she was going to visit every other weekend. And so the second week, things were they were so hard. I just sat there next to my baby all day. And I mean, what do? I couldn't really comfort him. I talked to him. I sat with him. I was just in a daze, and I was all by myself. I couldn't really have people come visit me. I was afraid of, what if they got me sick and then I gave the germs to him? I could easily lose him if that happened. And so that second week, the whole week, I just kept waiting for the weekend when my mother would come and at least I wouldn't be alone. And I really believed, which is, the whole time I was in the hospital, like I said, she did many things that were so negligent and disrespectful of my feelings, but I still kept hanging on to that hope that she was going to come through. And so I just really thought, not that it was going to be great or perfect, but that she would be there and she would care. And that Saturday morning, I got up and I just felt so relieved that I wasn't going to be by myself for the weekend. And I was on my way to the hospital, and I called my mother to see when she was coming. She wasn't coming till much later in the day. Okay. And then tells me she's going to stay for about 20 minutes. And then she needed to go because she was going to go have dinner with my brother and go shopping with him, who we lived in the same town. My mother lived 2 hours from both of us. And I was so devastated. I could not believe, even with this happening, even her grandson may not even live. And I'm here in complete and utter despair. I don't know if my son is even going to live. He's suffering and I can't stop it. Even with this horrific thing going on, she still would spend time with my brother over me, significant amounts of time. I was just going to be a pop-in, and then she went and did what she really wanted to do. And I was so devastated and hurt. I just started crying, and, of course, with all the stress of everything else going on, and this piled on top. I could not stop crying. And I literally cried, not like hysterical crying. I just mean like tears coming out of my eyes the whole day. They just wouldn't stop. I was so in shock that my mother would treat me this way. And anyway, so because I was crying and everything, when she got there, she stayed a little bit longer. And then she's like, I really have to go. I'm meeting with your brother. And so I was walking her out to the door of the hospital, still crying. And she turns around and says, why don't you go home and set up the crib and think about when he's going to come home? And I had this moment of that's really good advice. She does care. And then she said, with a tone just like this, and if he doesn't make it, you just tear it down and sell it to get your money back. And then she left. That was what she said to me. And then she just left like it was no big deal. That's how she acted toward me in that situation, and talked about my son dying like the big problem would be, oh no, and I spent all this money on a crib, as if that's even what I would care about. So I just see that as I've already been. This is not so now I'll get revenge on her when she's in a bad situation, I won't come. It's got nothing to do with that. I'm saying I've already been in an extreme situation with my mother, and she still acted the way she always had. So if my mother is asking for me on her deathbed, she's not going to be wanting to have a real conversation. She's not going to she may say she wants resolution when what she wants is to manipulate me. I just don't want to be a part of any of her warped conversations ever again. And if the conversation went that way, I know where I am now and where I want to always be. And it's that I would not sit there and tolerate it and play along. I won't do that. Not for anyone ever. I've done it too many times. It's been too damaging to me. I will not do that. I shouldn't have to do that. But I also don't want that to turn into me causing her stress while she's dying, which is what I would do, because I would stand up for myself. And by this, I mean, Like if she says, I'm sorry I wasn't a perfect parent, which she has said before, and narcissists often say in their, quote, apologies, that's an attack on me. It's saying she didn't do anything wrong that was of any real consequence. The real problem is that I've always had very unrealistic expectations of her. Expectations that she couldn't meet because no one could meet them. So the problem is still about me. So then my choices are I'd either call her out on that, or I'd leave the room, or I would put up with it. And I won't put up with it. And I'm not going to do that to someone who's on her deathbed. I just, there's no good end to that. So that's where I stand. Now, maybe for you, you'd feel differently about it, and that's okay. But I really appreciated having this person on here, just assuring that whatever you choose to do, if you're ever in that position, it's okay. And I agree with that. Well, we're getting towards the end. Oprah gives each of these 3 therapists a chance to give their final thoughts. And Dr. Tawwab says there's hope because we have access to more information now on how to work through troubled relationships. And I agree, if both people in that relationship are willing to participate, there's a lot more information available now to help people in that situation. And she said she doesn't think people just say, hey, I'm out of here, I'm not even going to have a conversation. And she says, with some people, they can't have the conversation with that person. So what are they to do? And she just encourages people to look inward at themselves. And then Dr. Gibson comes on and she says, everybody has a lot of stress and dealing with a very complex world right now, and that adult children are facing things now that are different than the world was 30 years ago. I think that's true to an extent, but I don't think that's really the issue, personally, with estrangement. I just don't think that would matter if parents were listening to their kids and hearing out their perspective, then what would that matter? But that said, I really respect her. Like I said, I read her book. It was super helpful for me, just at identifying the pattern with my own mother, and again, just even generationally. And then Dr. Coleman jumps in and says parents are under so much pressure because what constitutes a good parent has gone through the roof. You're supposed to be sensitive. You're supposed to be all these things. How is being sensitive to another person's feeling an expectation that's gone through the roof? He's making it sound like expectations for parents are now so high and so unreachable. I think the bottom line is that being defensive when our children come to talk to us, not being a safe space for that, that's not going to make anything end well. And it's not a ridiculous expectation of a parent for that parent to be willing to listen to their children's needs and feelings. That is not an unreasonable, through-the-roof expectation. So that's the episode. Yeah, I told you I had a lot to say if you've hung with me all this time. It was, again, like I said, there was really great moments, but some very frustrating things too. And if you wanted to watch but weren't sure, maybe this can just serve as a substitute for that, or if you do want to watch it, maybe this can be a guide to prepare you through the episode, to just make you feel more prepared and more safe. And like I said, maybe now you'll feel like, man, I don't want to watch it. I'm glad I know what was said and what happened. And I will warn, some articles, some posts are still popping up on social media. If the algorithms are matching you to those things, be careful if you decide to go to the comments. It's a train wreck in there. And I was curious on how people would react. Like I said, earlier in this episode, I was just curious if I shared my story with some of these people. Even like the thing about the crib and stuff, I told somebody that, and that was, she's the one that said, I think you're dumb. And she started laughing at me and making fun of me. And even when I shared that I have post-traumatic stress disorder, I've been diagnosed with that, they laughed at me. And it's and then you all wonder why your children are no contact with you. If this is how you react to somebody saying they have been traumatized. Anyway, don't go into that stuff unless you feel prepared, or, what difference are you going to make? These people don't listen. So if you're no contact with a parent and you say you're dealing with a lot of trauma from that parent, I want you to hear and know this. I believe you, and you do not owe anyone a justification for your decision. It's your private matter. You have no obligation to share your private business with anyone unless you want to. You know your story. You know your lived experiences better than anyone. And you don't have to reveal your private, painful, traumatic experiences to the world to explain your decision to anyone. And I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you for loving yourself enough to take this hard, painful path. It truly is an act of self-love. It's an act of reclaiming your life, of reclaiming yourself, and you're worth every ounce of pain that requires. We still have more to talk about regarding going no contact, and we'll be getting to that soon. So I'll see you soon. And please remember, to all my fellow survivors, you are worthy, you are valuable, and you are beautiful, whether your mom sees that or not.